This podcast is brought to you by Impact.com. Impact.com is the world's leading partnership management platform. Are you looking for new ways to acquire new customers? Impact.com can help you drive revenue through partnerships with publishers, creators, or other brands. Visit Impact.com today.
Don't worry about breaking a few glasses. It's okay, make mistakes, try things, go fast, grow, don't worry about protecting the downside, right? Let's optimize for the upside and not the downside.
You're listening to the Affiliate Marketing Podcast brought to you by affiliatemedia.com, the chapter and verse of everything you need to know about running a successful affiliate program for your business. Now, here's your award-winning affiliate and performance marketing host and industry veteran, your affiliate marketing guide, and the founder of Affiverse, Leanne Johnston.
What if everything you thought you knew about scaling affiliate programs was actually holding you back? Today on the Affiliate Marketing Podcast, we're shattering conventional wisdoms with Max Ciccotosto, Chief Product Officer at Impact.com. Prepare for a game-changing perspective as Max reveals why treating affiliate marketing like a true sales channel could be the catalyst for unprecedented growth. In this episode, we explore the counterintuitive strategy of opening your program's floodgates and why it might be the bold move you need to make. You'll uncover the hidden truths about partner outreach, including the optimal number of emails to send and which one gets the highest response rates. From automating recruitment to hyper-personalizing engagement, we're peeling back the layers on tactics driving today's most successful affiliate programs. This episode is packed with actionable strategies to transform your approach, and you won't want to miss it. Welcome to the Affiliate Marketing Podcast with me, your host, Leanne Johnston. And today I'm super excited because we have got Max Ciccotosto from Impact.com, who is the Chief Product Officer. Now, Max, it's awesome to meet you. And I have always wanted to get somebody from the product team onto this podcast to talk about what Impact does and also how it can be really leveraged to grow an affiliate program. So I am very excited to have you on my mic. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hi, Leanne. It's a pleasure. I'm happy to finally make it to your podcast.
Let's start off with a little bit about your history, Max, because you've had a very interesting and exciting career in affiliate marketing. And I think before we get into the nitty-gritty of what you're going to be sharing with our audience today, I always like to give my guests a little bit of an opportunity to just tell their story, because everybody's story of how we've gone into affiliate marketing is always so different. So tell us a little bit about how you got started.
Yeah, I guess it's it's one of those where, coming from Italy and, working in Microsoft for a long time, I never really thought about being an affiliate. It just somewhat happened, right? And the way it happened is after I left Microsoft, I started my first startup. We were one of the first, at the time, universal wishlist sort of again. And so we kind of became a fairly decent sized publisher. Think about 70 to 100,000 a month revenue type of publisher, right? And I would say at the time, maybe if I knew now, at the time what I know now, probably would be much higher than that. Yeah, so I, some regrets there, but, so I kind of became a publisher. And I was a publisher for a few years. And we ended up being acquired by a much larger publisher, where I ran Growth, Lockers at the time, very high-flying startup. And from there, we ended up being acquired by a very large Chinese global e-commerce company called Light in the Box. And I essentially I worked for the president and ran global growth for probably 4 years. And that's how I kind of ended up being on the brand side.
Yeah.
Because the affiliate channels were in my group, influencer marketing was in my group, biz dev was in my group, right? So they were kind of in my group. So everything but programmatic and search and CRM, kind of like newsletter, everything else was kind of in my group, right? And so I got exposed for a long time on very large programs, right? At the time, we ran 35 programs globally for the two main brands that we owned across all geos, so major geos, right? So fairly large scale, fairly complex. And so anyway, that's how I got introduced to Impact. And then, last stop, so it was my brand experience. And then finally, in the process of running global programs, I kind of ran into a lot of issues. And that's what led to, hey, there should be a product to fix that. It doesn't exist. And that's how Media Rails started. And that's how we got into the Media Rails business. So, I went from a publisher to the brand to being a tool vendors, right, for agencies and brands mostly, which led us later on to be acquired by Impact, which is when I joined Impact now, almost 5.5 years ago.
Wow. Okay.
So been very fortunate to be, in position as chief market officer for the past 4.5. So, when we joined, we're like 250 employees. Now it's north of 1,000. So, much bigger with a lot more stuff going on, but still the same fun.
I love that story. So the thing is that you came in from the publisher side, so you had a really good understanding of what all the pet peeves of affiliates that are working in our industry and the struggles that they go through in order to grow their business. But then you went brand side as well, so you understood the flip side of the coin and why, sometimes there's a disconnect between the relationships that are made because really we're coming at it from two totally different angles and meeting in the middle. But I want you to go into Media Rails because, as you know, I'm a huge fan of that product and I've used it multiple times, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But just for anybody that's tuning in right now, can you just give a brief explanation of what Media Rails is and how you came to actually develop it? Like what led you to develop that product?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the short story is, Media Rails is a CRM and partner engagement automation tool, mostly designed for brands and agencies to help them scale and better engage their partner to drive growth. And so how we came to it, I think it was from the learnings on when I was on the brand side a lot in the box, right? And some of the challenges that we had. And so a few things there, right? Of what led to Media Rails. First and foremost, when I was running global growth, I felt a lot of these channels like affiliate, influencer, biz dev were all kind of working the same way. They had similar workflows, similar ways to engage, similar flywheel effects to them, right? And I thought they needed to be managed in the same way within the same umbrella, right? Which at the time led me to believe that somewhat from a historical perspective, there's been a mistake of including affiliates in marketing.
Yeah.
Right? That it was mostly a biz dev channel and not a marketing channel, especially when it's under the performance marketing. Now, affiliates is much closer to sales than it is almost to performance marketing, right? In a sense, right? And I felt those commingling sometimes led to not optimal behaviors, right? In the way you can set up stuff, right? But fundamentally, the thinking was, hey, these are kind of biz dev channels, right? And then as business, if it's a business channel, then you got to think about it like what are the right processes, the right people for those processes, and what's the right set of technology to run that, right? And we kind of set that way like in the box, and we're kind of thinking about it more like if it's biz dev, it's kind of closer to sales, right? So what are the tools? Right? At the time, affiliate did not have the tools as the sales teams had, right? So you need a CRM. Where do you store the technology? Where do you store those relationships? What are the contracts? And that was a challenge I had. Like I started and I remember getting this invoice from a vendor. It's like $50,000. It's like, where is the contract? Nobody knew. People left. Like there was no record of this thing, right? And so I felt, well, we need to have a list of all the partners we work with. We need to store all the information about those partners. We need to know where the IOs are, who are our contacts, who do we email when we have a campaign or needs, right? We need to store and see who's working or not. And when you do that across 35 networks, well, it gets really complicated. You cannot do it manually, right? You have like thousands and thousands of things that happen, right? And so I tried with Salesforce or other tools, right? And I couldn't find it. And so that's what kind of led to starting it, right? Your suite needs a technology that is the system of record of what you're doing. Like sales has Salesforce, engineering teams have Jira. What is the thing for BizDev and affiliate? Okay, Salesforce is not quite it. It doesn't have the velocity tools needed and the automation needed for the industry. And so that's what led to essentially start Media Rails. Like, okay, well, let's build that. Right. And we, that's really what led to building Media Rails was to kind of believe that, again, business development, including affiliate influencer needed automation tools that were designed for the industry that allowed them to focus on what's great about their jobs and not have to worry about spreadsheets and tracking and all this stuff.
I think a lot of industries haven't actually adopted this methodology, and it is a real problem. Like I've managed programs in my career where I've had 100 affiliates and I've also had 15,000. And believe me, the problems that you have when you're managing 15,000 affiliates in a program and trying to remember what's happening, along with the fact that your staff complement is changing. Like over a period of 5 years, you could have 3 or 4 different affiliate managers that come in that all have different relationships. And who keeps that knowledge when they exit the business? Like, especially if you work in really big teams. But you've mentioned something there about the fact that there wasn't a tool that could work across multiple channels from biz dev to affiliate to influence. And the channel, I don't even like to call it channel anymore. And you and I had a lot of controversial discussions about this, but affiliate is now basically a payment method. That's kind of how we've kind of classified it. And with the channel becoming so ubiquitous, with performance partnerships coming into it, like B2B partnerships, for example, and influencers who might work on a tendency for a little bit and then move to a percentage of sales, we kind of do need to have a tool that can keep all of this information together, but also capture the different things that these channels or these partnership types need. And so it's quite interesting that you were discovering that 5 years ago, but it still hasn't actually been widely adopted in the industry right now. And I have actually kind of used Media Rails on a number of clients in our agency to actually bastardize the outreach. And we've seen real results on when a funnel is actually built to do that. Now, what I get asked a lot and what I want to kind of dig in with you a little bit from your experience, because you have had a lot of experience in this, is what is the best sort of outreach and onboarding funnel or process that you've seen from managing all of these different types of like brand programs on both sides? And what's too much or too little information to give to affiliates when you're using a tool like MediaRail? Because a lot of affiliate managers ask me, how many emails should I be sending to my affiliates in a month? Should I be, pre-vetting affiliates? Can I leave my program open? What's the best practice? And my answer to that is always like, what's your risk profile? How, strict is your brand guidance? Like, are you at the beginning of your phase or where you just want to let everybody in so that you can just get going and get relationships started? Or, have you got really sophisticated paid media and other channels where you need to work alongside them and actually not encroach in their space and work together instead of cannibalistically? But what are your thoughts on this? Because I know you had quite a controversial view, and I want you to share that with my audience.
Yeah, I do think, I think you hit on some really important points, right? And again, I think if you kind of step back and think about these channels, fundamentally flywheel growth channels, right? And not as this direct response type of approach, right? Yeah. You're thinking about building for the long term. You're building about, think about like, okay, how can I test as much as possible? How can I move as much as possible? Assuming that you're operating in a framework of constraints of people.
Yeah.
And personnel, like you're most likely being asked to do a lot more with less, and especially as we, in the past few years, right? So you kind of really have to think about, do I kind of put in place processes that they can automate that help me move fast and drive outcomes?
Yeah.
Right. And what I mean with that is, and again, I'm going to go back and give you a specific example, which I think will help with the math that we run, and then kind of step back on the principles, right? So at Light in the Box, we used to engage about 2,000 influencers a month, right? And we had 2 people full-time doing that. We can run the math. So if you are screening 2,000 influencers, it takes 5 minutes each. That's like under 60 hours a month. So you need one full-time person to screen, right? Then you outreach and send an email, you're back from 200. Now, run the math again. If you're screening 200 only, that's 16 hours, not 160.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And so why don't you flip it? Why don't you outreach first, see who gets back to you? Outreaching takes very little time when you automate it, right? And right message, and we'll cover how many messages and what works and doesn't work. But fundamentally, you can have machines mostly outreaching on a semi-personalized base.
Yeah.
You're back from 10% of them. Actually, that's pretty good if you're back from 10%. It's less than that, right? Probably 7, 8. Now you already saved almost a full-time person, like worth, right? You got 200 people to negotiate. They email you, right? Like if you need to negotiate with them, again, that takes time. That's another potentially 40 hours, right? Well, what if you have very strict guidelines? And you say, hey, if you are below 25,000 followers, you get a free gift up to $100.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it. You want it? Send me the address in one email. This is what you qualify for. Reply with your address. We'll get it out. Done, right? That takes 1 minute. Create a template versus you're going back and forth, right? Do you need contracts? Not really. Do you really need contracts on a free gift? Probably not. Just shift the gift. Worst case, they don't post. Well, whatever. It costs you $50. Way cheaper than your finance team and department team have to engage, right? Okay, now you saved a ton of time, right? And so I think I'll pause here, but fundamentally, the point being is if you think about just the sheer amount of tasks that need to be executed, and when those happens, and the cost of those tasks, you can kind of figure out the math on that you can go from potentially spending 8 people time to manage 2,000 to be able to do it with 2, right? And move very fast. Now, I think one angle that you touch on that, which I think is very important, is sort of the cultural aspect.
Yeah.
Right. I learned a lot when I was on the brand side of kind of like you are in a team. There's like the SCM team, the SEO, there's pay, like just who's getting, like there's just a lot of stuff happens. Finance, I don't want to go to finance. I don't need to clear this. But the one you touched on to me is the cultural aspect of how comfortable you are with risk and errors, right? I speak about error rate. If you move fast, something's going to break. You're going to accept the bad creator, somebody doesn't post, like things happen. Okay, is this really a big issue? And that's that trade-off you have to make it, right? And so again, easy one on if I send a gift and then on post, do I get yelled at by my manager or not? Oh, why didn't you check? Point of it, you have a cultural growth where you're okay with a error rate, specific error rate. Of course, if you are a global brand with political sensitivities, but that's very few that have that problem. Vast majority of brands don't have, luckily in a sense, I'm not quite there yet, but they should use that as an asset, right? And not think about it as a liability, right? And so there is a bit of that cultural aspect of that. And I remember when when my first startup got acquired, right? And I was working for this president, the individual that was our president was run affiliate at Amazon and was very, senior. He told me something stuck with me at the time. It was like, he told me, Max, don't worry about breaking a few glasses. Like the point being, it's okay, make mistakes, try things, go fast, like grow, like don't worry about protecting the downside, right? Let's optimize for the upside and not the downside.
That is a big thing that I want to just pause on here. So guys, just rewind and go and listen to what Max has just said, because we are afraid to fail forward in this industry because we are so measured by the data and we are so monitored by the targets that we have to deliver because everything can be seen in real time that we're almost petrified of failing forward and doing what you're saying, which actually mathematically makes sense, but it puts the fear of God into most marketers that are listening to this because it's not the way that things have always been done. But my question is, are you brave enough to try it for 2 weeks, to turn on the floodgates for 2 weeks, see what comes into your program, let these guys perform, and then challenge them at the payment, time frame, and maybe you'll be surprised by what you see? Because any good affiliate manager will tell you, don't put your program on everybody in, always on, because you will get fraud, whatever, but will come in. I mean, if somebody's going to want to defraud you, they're going to find a way to defraud you anyway, regardless of whether you're pre-vetting them or not, and you'll only catch it in the data afterwards, or unless you employ specific fraud tools or whatever. But I really want to challenge everybody here listening to this podcast to actually take your advice and go see what happens with their programs and ping us on LinkedIn when we post this podcast and say what happened. Tell us what happened, because we need to see if it is actually making an impact and stopping growth. So I challenge you listeners to get brave and try and see if you can change the way that you're vetting and bringing partners into your program and see what the results are. Do a scientific experiment and see how it works. I know it works because I have tried it in my career, and we have definitely used outreach and tools to automate the discovery process in Impact and also outside of it with other tools, with other programs and platforms that we work with. And we've always seen an incremental uplift in automating. And I agree with you. Your Lightbox years where you ran, 2 influencers with 2 people. I ran a $27 million program a month with 3 people. And scale is possible without resource, but you have to be clever about what your systems and processes are. And often we focus more on growth and less on the incremental, small changes that impact the way that you can perform. It's almost like that Japanese manufacturing, I think it's called Ikigawa or whatever it is. But you need to kind of apply that to your program too and see how it impacts and changes the results of what you're doing. Because the worst case that you can be in is the mentality of, well, we've always done it this way, because the affiliate channel's changing all the time. I mean, the whole industry is moving fast. So if you stick around and do the stuff the same way that everybody else has done it, you're never going to grow.
Yeah, 100% agree on all. I mean, a couple of points there. I do think one, there is undoubtedly one of the top programs in the world that accepts everybody and they just checks after people generate traffic, right? And then validate and expel them for whatever reason they may have.
Yeah.
Right. They have a very sophisticated way to do that. It's not like again, the processes are in place, right?
Yeah.
But it's definitely now, of course, if you're a very sensitive brand and there are constraints or where links can show up, you need to be more mindful of that, right? But that's few. The vast majority of brands, again, don't have that constraint. And I think they can act in a way that is conducive to remove friction where there doesn't need to be friction, right? And, accepting, outreaching, we have tools for that. There's automation, there's stuff that we can do. Like, it really saves you a lot of time and it allows you to experiment to see where the heat maps are, right? It's kind of like a watching React, watch the right tools, right? And that can be done very effectively nowadays. There is, with many tools. So if you use the Impact platform, we have specific awesome tools for that, from insights and, contribution reports and, flag reports, attribution risk report. Like, there's a number of optics on performance and brand safety, and we're doing more of that to make sure that the right things are happening, right? But you can watch that and react as needed, and then redeploy the time on value driving activities that you can do to engage with partners, right? Yeah. And that seems to be the right trade-off there.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, it would be remiss of me to bring the head of product onto this podcast and not actually ask a little bit about where you see the future of affiliate marketing heading and how technology is going to leapfrog us forward. So what are some of the kind of like big trends that you're seeing in product to support performance? And what are some of the things that you can share with us that Impact is looking to achieve in the next 5 years, for example? Like, where are the big trends moving to, and how do you see the future of affiliate marketing?
I personally continue to be super bullish and very bullish on the growth of the partnership channel, right? And again, I refer to this as partnership channels because they are all, to me, like part of the same bucket, right? The same thing, I think, and kind of finding more and more ways to activate those partnership channels, right? Example for us was like acquiring Sasquatch and thinking about your customers as partners, right? And you're delivering great service. They may now drive referrals for you, and we keep that ever-growing growth of that partnership channel and the right tools that are yet consistent on workflows, right? In our case, if you think about Impact, we think about creators, you think about affiliate, you think about strategic relationship, B2B, brand to brand. There are consistent framework. You kind of have to find the right partners. You need to automate how you engage with them. You need insights into the flow. You need to brand safety, right? And so the building blocks are consistent. And so we like that, and the consistency. And as you mentioned, because nowadays, a partner may change state, right? An individual can be an affiliate this week. It can be a creator on a campaign basis next week, right? It can be a customer for you 3 weeks from now is buying from you, right? And so it's not static. You're not the same thing. And so the consistency of the tooling for us, and the consistency and fungibility of how they're moving, I think it's something we strongly believe in and we continue to build technology around that. Having said that, yes, there is consistency in sort of the building block. There are differences in workflows, right? For scenarios, like, when you're engaging creators for a campaign, it's very different how you work with
SEO affiliate
ambassadors, right? Or like a traditional affiliate or a loyalty. So there are differences. And so from that press point, we have dedicated and special work that we continue to build and say, these are the special workflows when you work in creator mode, right? These are specialized workflow that you need to work with loyalty partners. These are specialized workflow for credit card link offers. These are specific workflows for performance CTV.
We, for many years, have always forced everybody into one bucket. Like, that's how affiliate was, you want to be an affiliate? Okay, you need to work like this. But as you said, every single other channel or every single other type, ambassador, influencer, traditional affiliate, blogger, whatever it is, partner, B2B partner, they do all have different nuances and needs and things that need to be managed. And so making sure that your tech stack can actually accommodate and automate and also preempt the changes is very important. So I'm happy to hear that. I mean, I'm interested in how Impact's going to be growing and adding value into the channel, into all of these channels as it becomes more ubiquitous. Let's round up with some 5 top tips of what do you think people listening to this podcast today should really go and have a look at in their tech stacks and understand how to harness in order to grow their programs in the next 6 months?
Again, stepping back, I don't want to be too frameworky, right? But fundamentally, I think we still have to always think about what are your goals and your culture and what you're trying to achieve, right? So I don't think we need to be mindful of that. Are you driving growth? Are you driving efficiency in your program, right? Sometimes you can strike the balance, but I think fundamentally your main driver should dictate the type of activities you're performing, right? You kind of like your goals, you got your strategy to get there, you got your tactics to get there, right? And our technology or any technology is there to help you deliver those, right? And so that's why we kind of think about, again, like think about specific buckets of needs. Those needs may be up and down, right? I mean, if you are in a heavy growth mode, okay, well, let's go set up your recruiting and your discovery and automation, get your prospect in, automate the outreach. Like you asked before, you have to send at least 3 emails. Everybody is in sales knows that. Like, in media reels, if you look across every send, the plus million email we send, the second email is the most replied, right? So if you are like, oh, people are not getting back to me because you just send them one note, well, that's not, thing. And so I think one first tip for me when you talk about now the recruiting, I will touch on each, the recruiting bucket, right? Is you are in sales. Too many times I hear people like, oh, they're not getting back into me, or they didn't reply, or the tool doesn't work. I'm like, the tool works extremely well. Emails go out, right? Find the right email addresses. The tool is working. If you are proposing somebody that has to do custom content for you for a 2% on a $10 CTA, they're not getting back to you. It's a bad offer. You are a bad salesperson, right? Like, that's not work. Think about what is your sales pitch to partners, how you get them engaged. And if it's a new partner, you may have to lean in a little bit, right? You're not optimizing a new relationship. Nobody kind of does that, right? Like you just get the ball going, right? And then optimize from there. Like, just get the win and then keep growing. And then you optimize from there, right? I think like this sometimes over optimization to start.
Obviously, within reason, if you're in a regulated industry, we can't do it. But we spoke about that earlier on in terms of, like the vetting process.
It's the traditional, like, cast a broader net to start, to get it going, get people to post, get them, get some stuff, get the ball going, right? And I think relaxing criteria, get people in, pay them a little bit more. You're still, still doing much better than any other channel, regardless. So do you need to optimize 10x versus like 8x or 7x to start? Probably not, right? Like, so kind of get going. And I think, again, but think about the salesperson, right? And you're in sales mode, right? That's really important, right? You need to send multiple emails. You need to follow up. You need to have your segments. When we did media reels, we looked a lot. What do the tools for salespeople look like? We let people just send a proposal. Oh, they didn't accept the proposal. Like, did you send a note? So I think that's one thing. I think that's really important, right? I think that's so very pragmatic to me. It's really focus on put your sales hat, sell your brand, get them engaged with you, do what you got to do to get them activated, right? And that's like step number one. Now, going back to something you mentioned before, which I do think is a trend we are building a lot of technology around. I think some of the best programs in the world have been doing this. And I think, I don't think, Wade Fanatics, for example, is a friend of ours, been a friend of mine now for years. They do it extremely well at Fanatics with tens of thousands of partners. But it's really thinking about micro-target engagement in your partners, right? You mentioned, how many times should I email them?
Yeah.
Like, it's newsletter most times. I was a publisher. I had a newsletter folder I never looked at. Really something when we designed media reels, we thought about that because it was like, I was in the received end and I therefore never looked at because most newsletters was too generic with too many calls. I cannot consume 1,000 newsletters a month. It's just not possible, right? And so the way Wade thinks and many others, right, are, there's a game on tonight. Can I get you the one product you can post tonight about that specific big game? And only to the people, only to the publisher that follow that sport and have that team, right? And so it's really, again, now if you put your CRM, customer engagement hat on, right? That's what the CRM, that's every retailer does that. They do segmentation, they have the data, they send you the specific offer at a specific time of the day. They know all that stuff. So why wouldn't we have the tools to do the same thing for partners?
You've given 4 points now, and I just want to go back to what the 4 tips are before we round up this one. The first one was set your goals and KPIs and assess your risk profile. So if you do nothing else next week after listening to this podcast, just go and have a look at what your KPIs are for the next quarter. The next thing is hone your sales skills. Like, become a salesperson. Don't just be an account manager. Actually get your sales hat on and figure out how are you pitching all of these affiliates and what are you actually giving them. The third one was don't be too precious. Try and see how you can open up the floodgates a little bit and actually open your eyes to new potential partners that maybe you've discounted in the past for whatever reason because you were worried about brand. And the fourth one is categorize and hyper-personalize your content marketing strategies to your partners and bring them in on your program and on what's important in a timely manner. And honestly, that's the 4 best pieces of advice that I think we can give to any affiliate manager right now who's trying to look to scale. So I'd love to thank you for your time, for being on this podcast, for giving all of these nuggets of wisdom. And remember, guys, you heard it from Max. You need to be sending at least 3 emails before anybody contacts you and make the second one the punchiest. Because of all the data that he's seen through all the years that he's been working in the industry, I mean, it's affiliate marketing gold. So thank you so much for being on the podcast with me this week, Max. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on my mic. I know we didn't get too deep into the product, but I really just wanted to talk about all of your experience because we had such a great conversation when we first met. And I'm very happy to have shared all of these thoughts with our podcast community that's tuning in. It's been a pleasure to have you here.
It's been an absolute pleasure of mine. And I'm glad we got the chance to do this. And hopefully we'll do more in the future.
Sounds good. All right. Take care.
Thank you.
The Elevate Summit is coming to London on September 16th and 17th. And it's shaping up to be the affiliate and lead gen event of the year. But don't just take my word for it. Here's why Simon Delaney from Databall thinks you should be there too.
When you look at some other events, the price of the ticket can be 3-4 times what Elevate is. But I think the biggest thing is that no matter which angle you're coming at this from, whether you're a publisher, a lead generator, a buyer of leads, a brand, whatever, spending a relatively small amount of money to meet new contacts that might be able to help you, meet service providers that could just provide that one thing that you're looking for, meeting a brand that you can now work with, or meeting a publisher. We all know that these relationships run into the sort of thousands of pounds sometimes, or can save you that, or using the right bit of tech or meeting the right person, the right publisher, can eradicate the problems you've had. So when you approach it from that sort of angle, it's absolutely nothing, right?